The architecture of the mind. We often look at the giants of history, the innovators, the leaders, and the visionaries, and ask ourselves, what is the secret of their ascendancy? We study their habits, their morning routines, and their strategies, yet we often overlook the most fundamental engine of their success: the way they think. In his seminal work, How Successful People Think, the leadership expert John C. Maxwell argues that success is not a stroke of luck or a byproduct of circumstances. It is a disciplined mental craft that can be learned, practiced, and mastered. If you observe the trajectory of any great achievement, you will find that it began with a single thought that was nurtured by a specific kind of mental clarity. Maxwell suggests that most people never reach their full potential, not because they lack talent, but because they are prisoners of shallow thinking. They react to life instead of architecting it. Successful individuals, however, understand that thinking is a deliberate act, a process of shifting from the noise of the mundane to the signal of the meaningful. In this deep dive exploration, we are going to deconstruct the 11 styles of thinking that separate the achievers from the dreamers. From the expansive vistas of big picture thinking to the sharp precision of focused thinking, we will discover how to rewire our cognitive patterns to navigate the complexities of the modern world. Success isn't just about doing. It is about seeing what others miss and processing reality through a lens of intentionality. Are you ready to break the barriers of your current mindset and unlock a higher level of intellectual power? If you are committed to evolving your mind and rising above the average, you are in the right place. Welcome back to Read and Rise. Let's begin the transformation of your greatest asset, your mind. The first style: big picture thinking, expanding the horizon. The first and perhaps most vital shift in the architecture of success is the transition from localized, narrow focus to big picture thinking. John C. Maxwell posits that most people live their lives looking through a keyhole, seeing only the immediate obstacles and the small patches of reality directly in front of them. However, the successful mind functions like a panoramic lens, constantly seeking to understand the broader context, the interconnectedness of events, and the long-term implications of every decision. Big picture thinkers understand that nothing exists in a vacuum. Every action is a ripple in a much larger pond. To embrace this style of thinking is to cultivate the wisdom of the heights. It requires the courage to step back from the daily grind, the urgent tasks that scream for our attention, to view the entire landscape of our goals and values. This is not about ignoring details, but about ensuring that those details serve a grander vision. When you think big, you become more tolerant of setbacks because you see them as minor detours on a vast map rather than the end of the road. You become a bridge builder, finding common ground between diverse ideas and people and discovering opportunities where others only see chaos. Maxwell reminds us that big picture thinking is also the ultimate antidote to stagnation. It forces us to keep learning, keep growing, and keep questioning the status quo. It prevents us from becoming obsolete in a rapidly changing world because we are always looking over the horizon, anticipating shifts before they occur. By mastering this perspective, you stop being a mere pawn in the game of life and start becoming the strategist who understands the entire board. In the realm of Read and Rise, this is where we begin. by elevating our gaze. We must learn to see beyond the now, to grasp the what could be. Only when we widen our mental horizons can we truly begin to architect a life that is not just busy, but profoundly significant. The second style, focused thinking, the power of the laser. If big picture thinking expands the horizon, focused thinking provides the intensity required to reach it. John C. Maxwell argues that while a wide vision is essential for direction, it is concentrated focus that generates the heat necessary for breakthrough. In a world characterized by mental fragmentation, where our attention is the most hunted commodity, the ability to focus is no longer just a skill, it is a competitive advantage. Focused thinking is the process of removing the clutter, silencing the noise, and directing your entire intellectual capacity toward a single high-value objective. Maxwell observes that many people are multitasking their way into mediocrity. They spread their mental energy so thin that it leaves no impact on any one area. Successful thinkers, however, understand the law of trade-offs. To say yes to a great goal, you must say no to 1,000 good distractions. Focused thinking allows you to penetrate complex problems that stop others in their tracks. It is the mental equivalent of a laser beam. When light is diffused, it is harmless. But when it is focused, it can cut through steel. To master this style, one must practice intentional solitude. It requires carving out sacred spaces in your day to dwell deeply on a specific challenge without interruption. This is where the read meets the rise. It is the moment where information is forged into insight through the sheer pressure of concentration. Focused thinking doesn't just solve problems. It provides clarity, reduces stress, and builds a sense of momentum that diffused thinking can never achieve. By narrowing your focus, you paradoxically broaden your impact. You stop scratching the surface of many things and begin to dig deep into the core of what truly matters. In the architecture of a successful life, focus is the pillar that holds up the grand vision. Without it, the big picture is nothing more than a beautiful, unreachable dream. The third style, creative thinking, breaking the mold. With the horizon expanded and the focus sharpened, we come to the engine of innovation, creative thinking. John C. Maxwell asserts that the successful mind is never satisfied with the phrase, "That's how it's always been done." While focused thinking penetrates existing problems, creative thinking asks if the problem itself is being viewed from the wrong angle. It is the ability to break free from the invisible cages of tradition, routine, and safe ideas. Creative thinkers are not necessarily those born with an artistic gift, but those who have cultivated the courage to explore the unknown and the resilience to embrace uncertainty. To think creatively is to value options over limitations. Maxwell observes that average thinkers often seek the one right answer and stop there. Successful thinkers, however, keep searching until they find multiple possibilities. They understand that creativity is a muscle. The more you exercise it by questioning assumptions and connecting seemingly unrelated concepts, the stronger it becomes. This style of thinking requires a childlike curiosity blended with a warrior's discipline. The curiosity to wonder what if, and the discipline to turn those wonderings into reality. Moreover, creative thinking is the ultimate antidote to the fear of failure. For a creative mind, a mistake is not a dead end. but a data point, a necessary piece of the puzzle that brings them closer to a breakthrough. It involves a willingness to be misunderstood and a commitment to intellectual adventure. When you master creative thinking, you stop competing in crowded spaces and start creating new ones. You move from being a consumer of ideas to a creator of value. In our journey with Read and Rise, creative thinking represents the rise in its most literal sense. It is the leap of faith that takes us from understanding the world to reshaping it. By embracing the unconventional and daring to think differently, we don't just solve the challenges of today, we architect the possibilities of tomorrow. The Weil style, realistic thinking, building on solid ground. While creative thinking allows us to soar into the realms of possibility, realistic thinking is the anchor that ensures we don't drift away into delusion. John C. Maxwell emphasizes that successful thinking is not merely about positive vibes or wishful dreaming. It is about the brutal honesty of assessment. Realistic thinking is the ability to look at the world exactly as it is, with all its flaws, obstacles, and cold facts, and build a strategy based on that truth. It is the foundation of credibility. Without a realistic filter, even the grandest vision will eventually crumble under the weight of unforeseen reality. To think realistically is to perform a mental stress test on your goals. It requires the discipline to ask the hard questions. What are the actual costs? What is the worst-case scenario? What resources are truly at my disposal? Maxwell argues that realism does not limit a leader, it empowers them. By identifying the landmines in your path before you step on them, you gain the confidence to move forward. The realistic thinker understands that hope is not a strategy, and optimism is only effective when it is built upon a foundation of concrete facts. Moreover, realistic thinking provides the safety margin necessary for resilience. When you have already accounted for potential failures, you aren't paralyzed when they occur. You are prepared. This style of thinking bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be by forcing you to map out the terrain in between. It turns a leap of faith into a calculated step. It is the bridge between the big picture and the focused action, ensuring that your dreams are not just castles in the air, but structures built on solid ground. In the philosophy of Read and Rise, being a realistic thinker means having the maturity to face the truth without losing your fire. It is the realization that growth is often messy and difficult, and that the rise is only possible when you acknowledge the gravity of the challenges ahead. By mastering the art of realism, you gain the clarity to see the obstacles and the wisdom to build the ladder that gets you over them. The fifth style, strategic thinking, the master architect. If realistic thinking maps the terrain, strategic thinking is the art of planning the journey. John C. Maxwell argues that while most people spend their lives reacting to the waves, strategic thinkers are busy studying the currents to navigate their ship. Strategic thinking is the ability to take a vision and break it down into a series of intentional, sequential steps that lead to a specific destination. It is the transition from hoping for the best to planning for the win. A strategist doesn't just work hard, they work with a blueprint, ensuring that every ounce of energy spent is a direct investment in the final outcome. Strategic thinking is characterized by its focus on the how. It demands that we look at today's actions through the lens of tomorrow's requirements. Maxwell suggests that the secret to this style of thinking lies in simplification. A good strategy takes a complex, overwhelming goal and distills it into manageable priorities. It forces you to identify your high-yield activities, the ones that move the needle the most, and align your resources around them. When you think strategically, you stop being busy and start being effective. You stop running in circles and start climbing the ladder of progress. Moreover, strategic thinking provides the flexibility required for long-term success. A true strategist knows that the plan may change, but the purpose remains fixed. By having a clear strategy, you gain the mental agility to pivot when obstacles arise, without losing sight of the ultimate goal. It is the discipline of planned persistence, knowing when to push forward, when to wait, and when to change tactics. Strategic thinkers don't just solve problems as they appear, they anticipate them, creating systems that prevent crises before they even manifest. In the journey of read and rise, strategic thinking is the bridge between the intellectual and the practical. It is the moment where the wisdom we have gathered from the pages of history and psychology is transformed into a battle plan for life. By mastering this style, you cease to be a spectator of your own life and become the lead architect of your future, ensuring that every second of your existence is fueled by a design that leads to greatness. The sixth style, possibility thinking, the catalyst of hope. As we move from the structural precision of strategy, we encounter the force that breathes life into every great endeavor. John C. Maxwell describes this style of thinking as the spiritual oxygen of the mind. While realistic thinking tells us what is, possibility thinking dares to ask what could be. It is the refusal to accept the impossible as a final verdict. Most people are held back not by their lack of ability, but by the self-imposed ceilings of their own skepticism. Possibility thinkers, however, possess a mental elasticity that allows them to see potential where others only see dead ends. To think in terms of possibilities is to become a solution architect. Maxwell notes that when a person encounters a wall, the average thinker looks for someone to blame or a place to sit down. The possibility thinker looks for a ladder, a shovel, or a way around. This mindset shifts your internal dialogue from "I can't" to "how can I?" This simple shift in language unlocks a reservoir of creativity and energy that remains dormant in the cynical mind. It is the belief that there is always a way, and if a way doesn't exist, one can be created. Furthermore, possibility thinking is contagious. It is the hallmark of great leadership. When you radiate the belief that a challenge can be overcome, you elevate the energy and the expectations of everyone around you. It turns a stagnant environment into an incubator for innovation. This isn't about blind optimism. It is about informed hope, the understanding that history is written by those who believed they could change the narrative. It is the courage to dream big while having the strategic and realistic tools to back those dreams up. In the world of read and rise, possibility thinking is the wind beneath our wings. It is the realization that the boundaries of your life are often just shadows cast by your own doubts. By mastering this style, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming a visionary of your potential. You begin to understand that the only real limits are the ones you choose to keep, and that the rise is only limited by the height of your own imagination. Conclusion: the masterpiece of the mind. As we close our exploration into the mind of the achiever, we realize that how successful people think is not merely a book about intelligence, it is a manifesto for a disciplined life. John C. Maxwell has shown us that the mind is like a garden. Left untended, it will grow weeds of distraction, cynicism, and shallow thought. But when cultivated with the 11 styles of thinking we've navigated, it becomes a powerhouse of innovation and influence. Success, in its truest form, is the outward manifestation of an inward cognitive mastery. We have traveled from the expansive vistas of the big picture to the laser-sharp precision of focus. We have anchored our creative dreams with the weight of realism and architected our path with strategy while fueled by the fire of possibility. These are not isolated islands of thought, but interconnected gears in a magnificent engine. To think like a winner is to realize that your current circumstances are but a temporary reflection of your past thoughts, and that by changing your mental patterns today, you are literally rewriting the history of your tomorrow. The journey toward greatness is not a sprint of effort, but a marathon of mindfulness. It requires the humility to keep learning and the audacity to think differently in a world that rewards conformity. You now hold the blueprint. The question is no longer whether success is possible, but whether you have the courage to think it into existence. If this journey through the architecture of success has challenged your perspective and ignited your ambition, then you have found your tribe. Don't let this be just another video you watched. Let it be the moment your rise began. Subscribe to Read and Rise, hit that notification bell, and join a community dedicated to mastering the art of the mind. Share this with a fellow visionary who needs to hear this today. Remember, you don't just read to know, you read to grow. We will see you in the next chapter of your evolution.